It sounds more like you're saying people didn't start off being vegan, but the world that we live in and the future that we're facing, if we don't become mostly vegan or vegan, we're gonna explode the earth and all die in a zombie apocalypse. I have 3 questions. 2 came from viewers and from the comment section of our other videos. Not the angry comment section, just the pleasant comment section.
Do we have an angry comment section?
I don't section them off, but it's there. It's a large contingent of angry BEXLIFE viewers.
I didn't realize I make people angry.
You do. And then one question came from a statement that you made when we were discussing a video that I did with Alex Jamieson, who was the co-creator of Super Size Me. She's written a bunch of books on veganism, how to be a vegan, cookbooks, and she is no longer vegan. So we made a video together, and because we were in a particularly good mood, because we're girlfriends, it might have come off as a little bit flippant, and people got really mad at us and called us names, and they were mad because she was saying that she left the vegan lifestyle, vegan diet, because it was not working for her health-wise, and she needed to restore her health. So in that discussion with you, you said, well, people aren't meant to be vegan anyway, and that shocked me.
Because I've been vegan for 20 years, and I stand by that. That's why it shocked you?
Like hardcore. Like
Yeah.
You're not only vegan, you're a raw vegan, so it's like extreme.
Pretty much. There's a certain percentage of cooked food I eat, like steamed veggies and stuff, but like nothing. I'm not eating veggie burgers or any crap like that. But yeah.
So what's that about? Because
Well,
that's just crazy talk, Mike.
That's what I have to say as a responsible vegan and as a responsible practitioner, because one of the things that really bothers me over the years is medical science sort of just giggles at all of these crazy things that come out of the alternative health movement. And some of them are from ignorance, because medical science doesn't understand the paradigm that we're working in. But a lot of it is from ignorance on the side of the practitioners and people, and they just have a lot of wishful thinking and wild imaginations about things. But when we really look at things objectively, I mean, human beings are omnivores. So I always tell people, veganism is not something that people should do, but it's something that we can do. It's an opportunity for us in so many ways, and it heals so many things. And many people can do it in a completely balanced way.
But wait, let me interrupt right there, because you said should do. Like, it's not something that they should do. Is it dangerous? Like, why shouldn't people do it? No,
it's something that we can do, and we can do it successfully. We shouldn't. It's not that we should do it out of because it's our natural way to live, because we're naturally omnivores. In the omnivore part, the meat and dairy part of that equation is not what people think it is. In the omnivore equation, if you really look at research, which is very conflicting, but when you look at it, I mean, the foods that were in balance. When we think about an organism, right, we have this system of organs that is in balance with its natural environment, and that's what we have to look at. When our organs were first formed, or similar organs were first formed down the line of evolution, what were they eating, and what was available? Well, it was just pretty much clean water, very rarely some honey. There were some fruits when in season. Definitely with more seeds, definitely not as sweet probably. And there were roots and shoots and plants and leaves. And the animal part of that was definitely no dairy products. There were definitely no grains, which I know is not an animal product, but there was definitely none of that. That's where the paleo people have a very good point. But there were tide pools. There were things that they would pull out of tide pools. There were insects, which a lot of people don't like to think about, which is a real human food. But culturally, we're really not into that, and I'm not like trying to make a movement for that or anything. But it makes a lot more sense.
Can we make a movement for that?
Well, there is a movement for that,
Can we do that though in a BEXLIFE video? We'll just eat insects. Can I get you to eat an insect?
I don't know if I would eat an insect.
I don't think you would.
In a natural world, though, I would eat an insect. I'm not like grossed out by it. I totally would eat it, but just for ethical reasons, I sort of think, why would I kill something when I don't need to?
Yeah, don't eat the insects.
Yeah, but those are, and then eventually people did start to eat. We started to grab and kill larger animals and eat them. A lot of that had to do with necessity, though, and people don't get that. The Ice Age pulled a lot of water out of Africa, and people had to move around and start looking for food, and they moved into colder climates. So things started to happen. Didn't mean that was our natural diet, though. We sort of moved away from our natural diet. And of course, when you look at high quality meats in the middle of in an active body, in the middle of a plant-based diet, and they're just having that, of course they're going to be healthier. You know, they're going to be fine than what people do now. What people do now is extremely out of balance.
Sure, because we're eating meat every day.
Yeah, and environmentally, we're in a space right now where animal farming is so polluting. I mean, it's cruelty and suffering. It's mega pollution in the form of methane gas with global warming, in the form of all the excrement and everything destroying rivers and streams, and then the excess of how we prepare it and how much we eat it and the low quality of it that most people are getting. It's absolutely unnecessary, and it's way out of balance, and somebody's going to have to eat vegan, and a lot of us are going to have to eat vegan or close to it in order to balance ourselves out as we approach 9 billion people on the planet by 2050. And that's why we can be vegan, and we can make those choices, to do that.
So no hashtag eat clean, hashtag bacon. Which I see on every single paleo Instagram post.
Well, they're taking it out of context. They're not understanding it. Eating a low-carb diet, because proteins and fats are very poor sources of fuel. So when you just eat protein, if you eat it with a lot of vegetables, I mean, it's not as bad for you as what the average American eats. But you'll lose weight and you'll get shredded. You'll get totally yoked. Like you'll get those things you want to get. But because of the acid-forming components of that food, and because of the way that it leaves sludge through the body, you really have to balance it out with a lot of raw juices, water, and you should really be active, and with lots of raw fiber and plant foods.
So if I'm raising a cow or a chicken or a pig in my backyard and I'm keeping it clean and it's eating all organic foods and I'm raising it, so even though the meat is not in and of itself toxic and the animal is very healthy, are animal products inherently toxic, though, to the human body if we're meant to be omnivores? Let's put aside the ethical stuff about killing animals for food and just talk about nutrition.
The volume of it can be, because in animal food, there's certain things that your body has to detoxify. Inside of muscle meat, there are poisons. There's natural metabolic wastes. I don't mean like some foreign poison. Although, animals do accumulate industrial poisons in them. We know that about fish and things like that, with mercury and stuff like that. But I mean, in a perfect environment, it really comes down to volume. It depends on how much they're eating, because there are some inherent metabolic wastes that then your body has to detoxify. There's like urine in muscle meat, basically, just like there is in us, and then it gets processed through the blood and it gets excreted. But so you're taking in that animal's metabolic wastes and things like that. But in small amounts, in the middle of a plant-based diet, Dr. Bishy sets it up when he works with people that eat animal protein, when you take he tries to balance it out so much with alkaline and cleansing plant foods that he calls it taking the antidote before the poison. So it balances it out.
Yeah, but then that's just saying that it is inherently toxic, and you would need all this other stuff to clean it out. So if you're doing it, know that you're doing something bad for yourself.
Well, let's look at it this way. It's not. Everybody heard what I just said about being vegan. I think that's the way to go because of all the things involved. Or as close to it as you possibly can be. But it's poison in the sense that if you just ate meat, then it would be a problem.
Well, of course.
Right. And there's some people that do that. Or if you eat a high percentage of meat, it becomes a problem. And we see it all over the place. I mean, we can go on Medscape or PubMed and look at all the studies that show the correlation between animal protein and cancer, animal protein and heart disease. It's there. I mean, it's it's right there in our society, But it has to do with volume. I had to admit, when I became a practitioner, I saw a lot of the vegans that I used to work with when I was a pastry chef in Angelica Kitchen. A lot of my interns and stuff would come in, and they would be the big thing in the vegan world is look, we made vegan donuts, vegan croissants, vegan tofu cheesecake. Everybody's so excited that they can be vegan because they're into it for animal rights reasons, and they can be vegan, but they could still eat their donut. And I saw those people, and they're out of shape, they're puffy, they're pasty. I don't mean all the people today, but I mean a lot of my people I knew, and I saw what the starch eating vegans, what their bodies looked like and how they felt. And then when I became a colonic therapist, and I started working with a variety of different people, and I worked with athletes that ate plant-based diets with a little bit of animal food, I had to admit they were in pretty phenomenal shape, and they were they could do laps around a lot of the pure vegans. So.
But the whole bacon for breakfast, grass-fed beef for dinner, high fat stuff. It's just.
It's all horseshit, and it clogs up the pipes, it clogs the intestine, it clogs the arteries, and it would need to be balanced out. It's like when people drink coffee. You know, people say I want to drink coffee, and you say, well, you can, but it dehydrates the body so much that you need to drink so much water just to balance it out. If you want to eat meat and things like that, if you know the ethics don't bother you, I don't know why they wouldn't. But if somebody wants to eat meat and they do that.
I love how you snuck that in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do. You know, I don't really have an agenda, but I have an observation. I mean, if anybody's seen a slaughterhouse video, it's rough. I've seen grass-fed slaughterhouse videos. You know, they ate well, but it's still rough. You know, it's a very scared animal that's in tremendous amounts of fear and pain. So. There was I know I'm making your video longer than it needs to be, but there was a video there was an old video. Dateline NBC came and did a video in New York around the raw food thing and stuff, and I was on that, and it's hard. It was terrible. They lied. Basically, they lied, in my opinion, to us, and. It turned out not to be. It turned out to be a piece on orthorexia, which is a term coined to describe people that are basically have some obsessive addictive thing about health food and trying to be healthy, and they do it to a point where it doesn't serve them anymore. And they totally it was a shit show. They totally ruined. They basically said they were doing one thing and they did something else, and I won't get into the details of that. But anyway, on that they had Viktoras Kulvinskas, who's quite a character, and he wrote some of the early raw food books, and he was on there with John Stossel doing an interview, and Viktoras said to John, he said, you know, you absorb the animal's fear when you, you know, their fear and their pain when you consume an animal that's been killed. And John said, that's ridiculous, you know, and unfortunately Viktoras didn't, or they edited it out, or he did not respond with the answer that I would have, that, you know, even hunters know that if an animal is scared, if you don't make a clean kill and an animal's running around and it's scared, I've been told that there are fear chemicals that get released into the meat and it totally ruins the meat. And those are basically stress and anxiety chemicals, the same ones that we produce on our body. So when you eat animals that come from that type of environment, when they hear the other animals being killed and they freak out, they know that noise and they know something's wrong, and then they have to smell the blood and all the terrible things. There is a certain amount of fear chemicals and stress chemicals that you're eating when you eat that type of food.
Sure, it makes sense. I mean, we produce them. I'll produce them when I give birth. You produce them when you're happy and, you know, doing fun stuff.
Happy chemicals, yeah.
Happy chemicals.
So who wants to consume that on a daily basis? And we wonder why people are so, you know, people can get really, like, look at road rage and look at, like, you stare someone in the eyes on the subway, it's like it's fight time, you know. It's like, I wonder why our society's like that.
I think people, no matter what they do at the end of the decision that they make at the end of the day, whether or not they're going to eat meat or not, should have knowledge and should have observed all different kinds of farms, because it's not all the same, but at the end, the animal does get killed, and
they do
probably has some sense that it's going to happen. So you should at least have an understanding of that and then make your decision based on knowledge.
Here's an interesting thing that I learned recently. Somebody made a film called Cowspiracy. It's sort of a play on the word conspiracy, because apparently cattle farming and agriculture, animal agriculture in general, is the #1 contributor to global warming over everything, over all the cars and electrical factories and all these things. The interesting thing that I learned there is that there's basically free-range grass-fed beef is just a total myth. If just to support the American appetite for meat, what would need to happen is we would need to convert all of the land of the United States, Canada, half of Canada, Mexico, all of Central America, and down into almost half of South America, and convert all of that land into grass-fed beef ranges.
Well, it's not sustainable given our current rates of consumption and our appetite for it. So you would have to eat so little of it, the way if you were, hunting in the wild that you would. Like what it takes to actually catch an animal and kill it yourself. It can't be farmed. It's not sustainable. It's terrible for the environment. But what I'm hearing from this whole conversation, because it started off with why people aren't meant to be vegan. It sounds more like you're saying people didn't start off being vegan, and you don't necessarily have to be 100% vegan to be healthy, but the world that we live in and the future that we're facing, if we don't become mostly vegan or vegan, we're going to explode the earth and all die in a zombie apocalypse.
See, why didn't you just say that in the beginning, and I wouldn't have had to babble all this nonsense out? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying, and I'm saying, and I'm also saying that being vegan can serve people very well. Look, I'm blood type O. I'm not supposed to be vegan compared to the blood type thing, and I've done exceptionally well. Been able to perform athletically. I've been able to get my life going. It was so much better than what I was doing before that, and yeah. So and when we look at everything we just discussed, it's a really good idea. And the other part of that question, I think that you had maybe when I failed to record it before, as we do, was when people say that veganism doesn't work for them. And it's could be the case that that's true, that people have a hard time finding balance. But there's a lot of variables. What were they eating? Were they eating balanced? I mean, there was this one guy in the raw foods movement that kind of got out of that, and he got into eating animal food again and drinking colostrum and all this stuff. And but when I looked at his reasons for not being vegan, and I looked at his blog, he said, well, when I was on a raw food diet, I was getting most of my calories from kale and coconut oil. And I'm like, well, you do something like that, you're not going to be in balance anyway. So let's stop saying that it didn't really work for you. It's just you didn't eat intelligently.
How is he drinking colostrum?
He gets it in a powder form. He actually sells it on his website. He's a cool dude. I mean, I'm not trying to take shots at him,
but I mean, that's wow. I never even heard of that.
Yeah, the nutritional thing, I don't understand what he's into. The nutritional thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me that he's into right now. I understand the science behind colostrum, but it is just so clogging. I've seen it clog. It's just so clogging. I mean dairy products.
My body makes it, and it's like the heaviest.
Yeah, it's perfect for your baby.
It's pre-milk. Yeah, and it's perfect for the baby for the first 3 or 4 days of life, and then
yeah. And we don't need to get it from cows.
Wow, that's extreme.
Yeah, so but I don't know. I don't know where were we going with that. But we were talking about people out of balance. Also, there's a detoxification and rebuilding process that a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand this at all. So I read a study on PubMed or something, and it was why vegan diets didn't work, or how this study found that vegan diets didn't work for people. They put them on it for 3 weeks, which first of all is not enough time for anything to know if anything works. And in that 3 weeks, when the average person, we really need to know where they started from. When the average person stops eating all animal food, which can be clogging. I mean, you had asked me before, what is animal food poisonous? It's clogging if it's not helped along with vegetable food. Okay, so that's why you need to eat it in balance. It can be very clogging to the intestines, and then therefore mucus causing and clogging to the tissue and the cells. But what was I saying? I'm rambling on here.
The vegan diet.
Oh.
Because people were saying that it doesn't work for them, and they were putting it on the diets for 3 weeks.
They put someone on that for 3 weeks. What they don't understand is happening is they're in a detoxification process. And when that happens, a lot of stored acids that people are holding on to and things start to release from the tissue. And it basically decimates the mineral levels in your blood and stuff like that. Your blood's not going to look good. You could look at it with a live blood cell analysis, and you'll see all the blood cells clumped together. They might even be oxygen starved. Even though you're taking in all that good food, there's a lot of things that are releasing out into your body. You might be more prone to getting fevers and colds and congestion as your body's trying to expel. And a lot of people don't understand that. And that could go on for a long time. You could have a rebuilding process. I mean, I went from 205 pounds when I got into it hardcore when I first got into it. And I detoxed hard. Didn't know anything about colonics. Didn't know about saunas. Didn't even get a massage during it. Didn't even take an Epsom salt bath. Didn't know about detoxification principles. But I was young and I got into it. And I came from a really, really shitty eating background and alcohol and some other things and smoked cigarettes. So I was a mess. I was a mess for a while, and it was years that I went through it. And then when I got into the raw food thing, it was even deeper, And but then you come out on the other end, and you're so much stronger. People don't understand that. Now, are there some people that truly need to eat a little bit of animal food or something like that? I mean, I don't know everything. I don't have every answer, but I would say, okay, yeah, maybe, because we're omnivores. And if you're having trouble connecting all the dots, or your body's not absorbing it, some people have a lot of trouble absorbing iron from plants. They just do. It's just a thing. So, all right, so what I suggest, and what people tend not to do, they tend to leave vegan diets and go really heavy into meat. I never understand why they do that. A lot of the times we got to go backward then, and we got to help fix them when they come in as clients, because they get overly acidic and they get clogged and they start to experience symptoms from it. So we got to step it up and balance it out with the plants. But people, to balance themselves out, like, I don't know what Alex Jameson, I don't know what her deal is, but I would bet if she were my client that she would probably only need to eat small amounts, a few ounces of animal food, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, if that, in the middle of a vegan plant-based diet. I don't know what her symptoms are.
The pendulum swing is like the American way. It's,
right.
Vegan versus paleo, and everyone's fighting, and there's no middle ground, and no one's really talking about what's happening in their bodies in terms of detox, or, because saying that I just don't feel good is just way too simplistic. If I take peaches out of my diet, I don't feel good. And I feel like those peaches, they were ruining my life. I'm not detoxing. I just need one of my peaches.
That's a really powerful concept. People think, this is the way we think. We think if we don't feel good, there's something wrong. And we talked about this on our podcast when it came to pregnancy and giving birth, when it came to actually giving birth. And you were like, that is the process. Don't rob yourself of a process. Sometimes pain is part of the process of being human and natural functions of our body. And that's what illness is. I was talking to a friend of mine who works in medical science, and he's a dentist, and he wanted to help me when I was sick a week or two ago. And he said, I said, I haven't taken medicine for over 20 years. And he said, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. Why wouldn't you take medicine? And I said, because I enter into what my body's doing, and I let it, and I take on the experience, and I become stronger from it. Of course I'm going to take medicine if I'm like going to die. Like, I'm not going to be stupid. I would of course I would give a child medicine, if they were so sick that there was a problem.
It's just talking about bringing a comfort level. Like, do you need to take Excedrin every single time you have a headache? Do you need to take a painkiller every single time you have a sore muscle? It's those kinds of things that are so excessive, and we need to feel the process and understand our bodies. It's just to have a deeper understanding of your body. It was like when I went through my coffee detox, and you were like, just do it hard, and we were talking to people about ways to ease the symptoms of detox. Just do it. And it does remind me, when I think about getting those headaches and those withdrawal symptoms, I will never go back to coffee. It just hurt too bad to go off of it. But now I want to get into the next topic.
Okay.
So for the next video, we are going to discuss a sub-community of the vegan community, the 80-10-10ers. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of questions about the 80-10-10 diet, and people assume all the time that I'm vegan, and because I talk a lot about eating mostly raw. And
because you're hanging around me all the time.
Well, that, and I talk a lot about plant-based, which I mean literally plant-based. Like, plants are the base, and then there's a sprinkling on top of other things, but it's a small sprinkling, because everyone knows I eat 50 peaches a day. I'm on the 80-10-10 peach diet. So we're going to talk about the 80-10-10 diet in the next video, which will be equally as long and rambling. So you ready?
Yeah. I know you said short videos, and I was like, oh, I'm not good at that.
We have lots more where this came from, including topics on veganism, health, and even recipes that you are surely going to love. So make sure that you sign up for my newsletter at BEXLIFE.com by clicking on your screen or by following the links in the video description. And also be sure to go over to everydaydetox.org and find my friend Mike Green and say hello. I will see you soon in another exclusive BEXLIFE video. Love you.